Hi everyone, this is Lada from Astrolada, and thank you for joining me today. I'm talking with world-known author and angel communicator and psychic and clairvoyant, and she's also the creator of this beautiful set of cards, the Chakra Wisdom Oracle cards, Tori Hartman. Hi Tori, thank you so much for being here with us today.
It's perfect. It's perfect timing. I just turned in, in this taping, I just turned in we just went to press with my next book. So I was like, oh, good timing. I'm exhausted. I could sleep for 40 hours now, but yeah, it's all good. So hi, everybody. Hi, Lada.
Can you feel the Sagittarian energy of Tori? This exciting, uplifting energy? And Tori, you're also a teacher, aren't you? You teach people, you have classes, and you have, we're going to speak about some of your classes as well.
Yeah, I have to say, I really think, Lada, I'm more of a facilitator. I think people teach themselves. I think they have their own answers, and I think that what I look at is really eliciting people's intuition. And the difference between intuition and your brain, and I teach how to do that. I facilitate them finding their own answers, because I really don't like the idea of I have your answer, because you really are the expert on your life, Yeah. And I think that's something that, I was thinking recently, why did the angels give me the Chakra Wisdom cards, right? And I realized it's because I'm the most unlikely, I'm the most unlikely person who would say, oh, I know all this,
so it's tell people what to do with their life.
It's just not my style. I think people know what to do. And I find that, and I think you'll find this, you do this too. So, we really hold space for people.
Mm-hmm. Yes, and I don't like it when people come to me asking me what exactly they should do. I give them alternatives, but they should make their choice as well. Or people that become dependent on your advice. That's actually doing the opposite than helping them.
Well, and I think it's interesting because I just did a whole section on that in my new book, and just what it's about is that we're not here to give each other advice. We're here to support each other on our spiritual journey. And I think the most dangerous thing you can do as an intuitive or a psychic or astrologer is give advice, period. I think that the minute we get into advice giving, we become part of the problem. Mm-hmm. If you think about it, think about this, everybody, and this is true. This is true. You go to a reader and you're like, does he love me? And it's like, who cares? You feel miserable, right? So who cares if he loves you? And the thing is, the minute you start trying to fix that person's feelings, you become part of the problem, and then they can hold you responsible for it.
I know. I've seen that happen many times.
And we all have. And so one of the big things I work with people on is how to lovingly say you know the answer and to help guide them, as opposed to tell them the answer. Because I kind of do an eyebrow and go, really? You really don't know?
Yes, we do know.
I think we know. And I think if something's painful, our brain is trying to protect us. So I'm going to let you guide the interview now, because otherwise I'll be like,
oh, no, please don't. I love that. But I first want to say that how I got to know about Tori. I got given the set of cards, which are called the Chakra Wisdom Oracle cards, from my partner Lauren as a gift. And I started reading the story, and they were beautiful cards. First of all, they're so simple to understand. Look, it's like one words: joy and discovery and mysticism, and each one comes with a fable. And I started reading the story of Tori, how actually she had a near-death experience and how she received this message from the angels. She received each card in a number of communications and downloads from the angelic realms. And I think people and our viewers would love to hear this story, Tori.
Well, of course, I'll tell Tori's story. So one of the things that I really want to say is that I didn't set out to do this. Okay. And this is kind of like, life happens to you on the way to your other plans, I really started as a writer. That was my thing. Love to write. And I love to communicate. And I believe, everybody, and I think this is very important, that we get wounding in our life that ultimately becomes our purpose if we allow ourselves to find it. And I didn't know that until way after this was published. So let's back up I grew up in an alcoholic family. My mother really was, she succumbed to the disease eventually. And I think that there was a lot of sadness. And one of the things that happened when I was little is my mother wrote my papers for me. She said, "You have no command of the language. Let me write for you." And I didn't know. I was 5, 6, 7. I'm like, okay. So I always got A's. So she was happy. And, over time, because I had no way to communicate, I started to develop that sixth sense. It's like if you hold down a sense, the other ones get stronger. It's kind of like blind people can see, and their hearing is so incredible, or their, deaf people can see things that you'll never see. So whatever sense is pulled down, and my communication was, I had to communicate directly with spirit. And I think as a result, from a very young age, I could just pull out a card and say, "Oh, you're going to get this check. Oh, this is going to happen." And I thought I was making it up. Yeah. And I later found out these things were true. And I didn't understand that connection. So in my 20s, I had a near-death experience. I got very sick. And I was working on a book at the time that never got published. And it was terrible. And I was working on it. And I got sick. And I was rushed to the hospital. And during that time, I felt like this heat, this hot energy right here that came when I came back. When they revived me, and I felt this heat right here. And I remember saying to the nurse, "Do you feel this? Like there's something right here. There's something here." And that thing was talking to me. And I was like, this is not making me happy. And while I was in the hospital, I predicted things for people. I was like, the doctors come in and do the rounds, and they were all standing there. And I looked at the one doctor and said, "You better not go to Hunter this weekend with those bald tires." Everybody looked at him and they were like, "Do you know each other?" And he looked at me, and Hunter was where the skiing mountain in New York is the closest little mountain. And he came back in the next day and he said, "How'd you know about my tires?" I said, "Well, if I told you that, you'd put me over in Bellevue." Right? So it kind of evolved like that. And I started to really get uncomfortable with this gift because I didn't know what to do with it. I honestly was scared by it. And I went to finally, because I didn't really want to go to doctors, to be honest, because I thought, oh, they're going to give me medicines, to fix this thing. So I went to a friend recommended a psychic. Her name was April, and I never found her again, but she was wonderful. And she was already much older, and so I think she's probably passed on. But she said to me at the time, when you get this kind of gift, you can ask how to channel it. And I went, "Oh, cool." So I said, "Hey, can we use this for my writing?" Well, subsequent experiences happened, and I moved to California. Within an 8-week period, by the way, I moved to California because I really wanted to live in LA. I hated winter. I was done with it. And there was something about Los Angeles for me at the time that was fabulous, and I loved it. And the first week in my new house, my new apartment, I heard the first angel.
Wow.
And
it's like a proper voice?
Yeah, it was like it was an impression. It was an impression that came through so hard. It was like, it wasn't a voice yet. I wasn't hearing the voice yet. I was kind of feeling an impression. And the impression was the renewal card, which is not ironically the first card in the deck. It's the story of geranium, and the actual full fables, the original fables that were channeled to me, are in the toolkit. So what we did,
the renewal card.
Renewal card. And so when we did the book that you just showed everybody, the little guidebook, when we did this guidebook, the fables are actually like condensed to just a legend.
Yes.
So the full fable, the original full fable, couldn't fit in the deck when we did it, so it got put in here. So the original fables that the angels told me are here.
They're much longer?
Oh yeah, much longer, more in depth. You really get a sense of what these fables are about. And one of the things that was really interesting, because I'm doing a 52-week journey with people. So it's the toolkit journey. And I think we just did, today we did the guilt card. And what was very interesting, if you show the guilt card, and people didn't see this, we were talking about this today in the class, and I said, well, let's look at the fable. And I want to tell you the story about that too, but this is the actual picture of the guilt card, just so everybody can see. Now, if you look on her wrist over here on your left, the right side of the card there, so be over here somewhere.
Yeah.
If you look on that side, you can actually see she's handcuffed and chained. You can actually see a little chain in the card. And what's interesting about that is I was showing that today to people, and half the class was like, I never saw that before.
Yeah.
So what we were talking about is how the energy of guilt, how does it serve us? How does it work with us? How do we relate to it? And so we were working with that. And what's interesting is, when we look at each of the cards, going back to the full manuscript and full deck, I ended up, I knew I had something, but I don't want to go through the whole story because people can watch that online. It's a whole, but I'll give you guys the parts that aren't online so you can kind of connect it. What happened was I formed my first fable group subsequently, and we got together, and there were about 8 of us. And it was a remarkable group, that first group, because every single person in that group, one couple went on to become international best-selling authors. One gal won an Academy Award. People in that original group where we studied the fables went on to incredible success. And during that time, I said, I've really got to get this published. And I didn't know how to do it, so I self-published. And I found a gal on the internet, and I said, will you draw these for me? And she said, sure.
Oh, you first had the fables only without the cards.
Right, no cards. I didn't have these images. And I said, can you draw these for me? And she said, well, it's going to take me a year. And I said, well, who cares? I've been with it 10 years. At this point, I was in my 30s, And I said, sure, I don't care. Take as much time as you want. So I sent her the manuscript. In those days, we mailed it. Yeah. And every week, just like magic, in my inbox would be this little JPEG of a card. And I went, that's perfect. I never corrected her.
Wow.
Never had her. One card I had her redo, which was the miracle card. And somewhere I have the original. It's really interesting. But anyway, I had her correct that card. And so these cards arrived, and I was like, wow, these are great. Couldn't get a publisher. I self-published. And just so everybody knows, it was about $100,000 of my own money. That was all I had. And I sunk every nickel I had into printing up 10,000 copies in China. I brought the original deck over. It was expensive, but I hadn't thought it through. And so I found out that if I put it on Amazon, it would cost me, I'm not kidding everybody, it would cost me $2 more to sell it on Amazon. And that was when it was like $34. So Amazon was really, they take almost 70% of what you earn. So it's a lot. Oh yeah, in those days they did. And they still take a lot. But anyway, the point is that they do all the stuff. But what happened was I couldn't sell it on Amazon, but I'd lose money. And here's like 10,000 units showing up on my lawn, my neighbor's lawn. It was just like this, And after I dropped to my knees and started crying, I figured I've said this before, I'm down here, I'll pray. And so the first thing was get a storage unit. And I had about $5,000 left, and I spent all that money putting together a website because I heard the voice. The voice came forward from the Great Spirit and the Great Servant, and he's in that deck. There are 17 destiny cards that I talk about in my new book that people don't know about yet. And the Great Spirits, the Great Servant told me this, and he said, give it away free. And I went, free?
Oh, wow. All your life savings?
So I said, well, okay. So with the last $5,000, I put it in storage, and I put up a website, and people could try and use the cards online free. They never had to buy it. But what happened was I got the first request to purchase it, and then the next, and then the next. And it was like, if you
started offering on their own.
And so then I put a little site, the site up so people could buy it. And over time, I sold 10,000 copies in about 2.5 to 3 years. Wow. And people just came. And to me, that was like,
without any advertisement, without any like YouTube.
I didn't have, no, I had like, I'm not going to, lie to you. I had I had a presence on De Leon. I had, you know, a couple things going for me. I had a small list, but a lot of it was word of mouth. You know, it was like, it wasn't like I was like going, you know, on Oprah. You know what I mean? I didn't have, and people who've done their own stuff, they know it's not easy to build up, you know, sales. I mean, you know, I've had friends who've had incredible reviews and nothing. So, you know, there were, I mean, I tried to get on various things, but it was hard. Long story short, one day I woke up and I heard the voice again. It said, go to London.
Huh.
And there's a story there that I've written about. Y'all can see online somewhere. But I found my publisher in London. Joe Lal from Watkins was my publisher and still is. And she was amazing. And I knew from the moment I met her, this was the house for me. And, you know, Watkins Publishing is the oldest mind, body, spirit publisher in the world.
Yeah.
And Llewellyn is second, and then there's others. But I was so honored to get to work with them, and I still am. They're incredible. And they really had the vision of what this was. Originally, the original self-published version was Color Wisdom, and they said, can you make it Chakra Wisdom? And I went, of course, that's how I teach it, you know? So we changed the title, and they really streamlined it. So what happened was, though, over the time the angels were telling me all this, I kept feeling, and for those of you listening, I know you'll get this, I kept feeling like there was something here. And I knew it was bigger than me. I knew it had nothing to do with me. Mm-hmm. And everyone who started working with these fables started having miracles in their life. And I have to be honest with you, Lada, it had nothing to do with me. I mean, really, yes, I'm the vessel, but you know, it was my wounding. Going back to the wounding now, there's two stories I want to tell you now, bringing it full circle. Yeah. The gal who drew the deck for me, Gretchen, I put the deck up free online. It was around, I want to say it was around August 14th, September, you know, in that month, somewhere in that. And I think it was exactly like 5 or 6 months to the day later, the day after Valentine's Day, she died.
Oh, wow.
And right before I had talked to her only once, and she said to me, I feel like there's another card, Tori. I just wish there was another card. I said, Gretchen, I don't feel another card. I feel another spirit. And then when she died, I realized she was the spirit. And I realized through that experience, and I know you'll get this, and everybody listening, I know you'll get this. I realized that this was her last gift to us. This was her artwork. This was her opus. Uh-huh. As a result, what the under, I want to say the under the wave, what's under this deck is the idea of never, never give up your dreams. Don't die with your music in you. Don't die without leaving something that is your legacy. And so ultimately what I learned in going to the course, you know, Life Purpose Divination, because we're going to talk about that, accidentally, you know, it's like the guy who wanted to invent like the Post-it notes that were the permanent bond. He made them, you know, they were only temporary. He was like, he thought he failed, right? So I thought I was creating a course on how to read the Chakra Wisdom cards. But what I created was how to live intuitively, how to master the cards, how to work with your intuition. And what I recognized here is that in that course, there's a very big differential between you must understand the legacy you've been given. You must. That is the most important thing that you come to in that course. Because if you understand the legacy you've been given, the heritage that your ancestors left you, only then can you leave one.
That's a gift, basically, the finding your purpose, part of finding your purpose, discovering legacy.
That is it. That is the key to it. And I mean, if we look at you, right? I mean, you've got this rich history, right? In your heritage. Mm-hmm. And is it your daughter or son? Did you just your child?
Okay. I don't know. I haven't met him yet. We're waiting for him.
When are you due?
Sorry?
When are you due?
April the 9th.
everybody? So the child you are about to have, right, in this taping, because by then, by people watching it, they'll go, "Oh, she had the baby."
I don't think anyone knows, actually. I think you just.
Oh well,
Okay, it's great. It should come out. The
I
baby,
love that it's coming out because it means the spirit wants to be.
I know. I guess so.
Right? And the dogs are playing, so there's this energy, and so I feel like the baby's like going, "Yeah, I'm here, I'm here, I'm here," and I feel this Aries energy. It's like, oh. So the thing is that this legacy, this child will have this legacy, right? And it always skips a generation. So we look at the legacy what we're here to get is what our grandparents gave us.
Wow, I didn't know that. My grandmother was so spiritual, it's crazy.
Well, and if you look at your grandfather as being spiritual, we have to look at that as a gift that you got, right? So many people say the wounding of our childhood, the wounding of our ancestors. We forget that we're given a heritage and you're here to complete what he couldn't complete.
So we should always look at the previous generation, not our parents, but the one before.
Right. Wow. And there's two reasons for that. Because look, let's face it, our parents scar us, right? They're right, we're right up against them, and we're like, no, you're wrong. But if we skip the generation and spiritually, if we can heal the grandparents' wounding or fulfill their gifts,
yeah,
spiritually, our parents would have a better life. How that works, we don't know, but it's like the idea of healing the past generations. And we also see something very powerful in that that's really been coming forward to me. It's interesting. This is a show of new, because no one knew about you. And no, I haven't said this before, but one of the things that happens too is when we step into that heritage, when we really get who we are, there is this incredible freedom that begins to happen, because you actually get to see, when you realize that you're here to complete something from the grandparent, you can see your parent as a child. When you see their childhood, when you see who they were as a child through the eyes of your grandparent, suddenly there is an understanding of who they are. And I have to share this with you. And it's so interesting because we're talking about, you're about to create the next generation. And that's a very powerful time, everybody. And we're in this time, and even those of us who are older, we're not retiring anymore, right? We're actually reinventing.
Yes.
It's a whole different conversation. And every generation is being whacked with this. We're not able to go, oh, I'm going to retire. What's that? It means living our life on our terms. So what if we really did that sooner? So it's really an interesting thing that begins to happen. So one of my favorite stories, though, and I want to share this with you, and then I promise everybody we'll get back to the other stuff. See, I'm exposing all this stuff. You have to remember Sagittarius. You can't keep any secrets, right? There's no secrets. You don't get to have that little Scorpio going where you're going, I'm not going to tell anybody.
No, not with Sagittarius. It's all out.
It's like, oh, oops, But one of my favorite stories was I was starting to teach multi-generational healing, which was the precursor of life purpose divination. And life purpose divination is really the course. It's the one that you go, I get it. And by the way, you're going to hear growling in the background. They're playing. They're having a great time. Just so you know, it's like all the growling. Okay, Owen, come here, fun police. Owen is the fun police. Any fun going on, he has to stop. Come here. All right, so I was teaching the class, and this one woman says to me, it was, parents, family dynamics, right? And she says to me, by the way, this is for all of you who are like, stop, I'm still talking. For all of you who were like somehow abused or feel like, Owen, can I please? So for those of you who are like feeling that, like, oh, my parents, I had this one woman in my class and she said, okay, I understand we're going to work with our grandparent energy, but I am not going to forgive my parents. I can't forgive my parents. What they did was horrible. And I said, okay, that's fine. And so we're talking about other things. She was like, well, no, but I'm not going to forgive them. And I said, that's fine. She was like, what? I said, this is not the parental forgiveness class. That's down the hall. This is about our heritage. And this is about what we're here to do. And she's like, oh, okay. Well, but And then she had to tell me the story. So she went one step further, and she said, I didn't know my grandparents. I never knew them. They ignored me. I was raised in a cult with my parents. I couldn't get out. My brother and I tried to escape. We couldn't get out. It was just constant like abuse. And she went into it. Stop it.
Wow.
She went into it a little bit. And he can't stand it when anybody's playing, guys. He gets really upset. I'm sorry. So this reminds me, there was a video that went viral of this guy who was like, the child came in, right? And he's like,
yes, the
right? He's like embarrassed, I'm like, just like a woman, it's okay. So anyway, we're always like that. What happened was she started the class.
Mm-hmm.
And stop. She started the class. And about week 3, she started discovering things. She started doing a little research because I said, let's find out who your grandparents were anyway. She did a little research, and she found out that her grandfather, he didn't have a lot of money, but he spent $20,000, which is all he had in those days, to try and get she and her brother out of the cult. And she never met him. She never knew him. She disowned her family. And she found out right then, and it was really kind of sad, she found out he had died 3 weeks previously, almost like a couple days before the class started.
No.
So she never got to meet this man.
He was trying to save her, yeah.
And he tried to save her, and all of a sudden, and I know I'm getting truth bumps, so for those of you that I know, right? I call them truth bumps.
Really? Me too.
Right? When you get, and she came in and she got it. She got it. She said, oh my gosh, I get it. I don't have to forgive them. She said, it's bigger than that. I was loved. And I said, you were profoundly loved by someone. Someone wanted to save your life. Someone wanted you out of there. And that's all you needed. And let me tell you something, just that little information changed your whole life.
Wow, just a little grain of love, to know you are loved, to know about your ancestors a little bit. Wow.
And and that's for me what life purpose divination is. That's what that course is about. That's what that's about, is finding that thing that you think, and she said, I get that, because I talk a lot about, we never forgive others, right? We forgive ourselves for having judged them.
Mm-hmm.
So there's
That's well said. That's beautifully said.
And so when we say that, and what I mean by that, everybody, and I want to be clear, I know you get it, Lada, but I want to say this, that, she got, and I said this, do you get this now? And she went, oh my gosh, I forgive myself for wasting so much time in the resistance of, I'm not going to love them. I'm not going to forgive them. I'm not, because that means that what they did was okay. And I said, now you see, it didn't mean that, right? And she went, no. And so what the chakra wisdom cards are about is about, what are we making meaning of in our life? And the answers are right in our chakra. They're right there. And so, people say, and I have this club meeting coming up where I'm going to talk about, I really don't go into the definitions of the chakras. And people go, well, she doesn't talk about, like when they criticize you, they go, well, she's not saying that it's where it is in your body and the adrenals and this. And no, because you've already done that work. People who are already experts on the chakra already can add that. It's like adding it to your own recipe, right? Just like astrology. Mm-hmm. If you understand in astrology, and this is one of the things that I discovered, what opposes exposes. So if you've got Mars opposing your moon, mm-hmm. right? Just that opposition, that moon is going to expose your Mars. Mm-hmm. And that Mars is going to expose your moon. Yeah. So you're going to have a bigger emotional outburst than most people. Because they're
absolutely, yeah.
So that's what I talk about in the cards, is looking at what opposes exposes. If we're in a resistance place, it's going to show us who we are, right? It's not telling us information, it's revealing who we are in that. Mm-hmm. And when we get to know who we are, we can manifest like that. It's manifesting. I can't tell you how many times, people would say to me, how do you manifest so quick? And I go, because I understand how the chakra map works. Because your map is right there.
Yeah.
So that's why, like, I love teaching. Life purpose divination is a self-taught course. It is and part of that, and people, people say, well, I don't understand, or I'm lost. I'm like, good. Because you're supposed to be lost. Part of it is how you find yourself. See, the fun police is out. How you find your, he just can't stand it. He just starts barking. I tell you what, when I said this to a little girl, my neighbor has a little girl, and she was like, I said, yeah, here comes the fun police. She took that to school, and they all in in their first grade class, they're all walking around going, the fun police is here. So, but I think the big thing is that when we look at the chakra wisdom cards and we look at why, how did it sell 50,000 copies? How does it doing that? How's it selling? It's selling because there's an authenticity that you can find. And for those who don't get it, right, who go, oh, this is terrible, it's awful, it's this, there's always a few people who don't vibe with it or don't think it's for them. Great. Find what works for you. I remember years ago a yogi said to me, and he was one of those like woo-woo people, and I always say woo because I'm less woo and more you, but I'll say this and I'm going to stop. But he said to me, because I went, I can do Bikram yoga, but I can't do regular yoga because I always hurt myself. And I don't know. He said, well, first of all, you're a fire sign. He was Vedic. He said, you're a fire sign. He actually thought I was more Scorpio, but in the Vedic, I forget which way it goes. Does it go forward?
The moon there is Capricorn in Western astrology, but the Vedic astrologers look at the moon sign only, and in Vedic astrology, your moon will be in Sagittarius.
Okay, that's what it was, because he was talking about my moon in Sag. Okay,
yeah.
So he was talking about that, and he said, part of it is that for you probably did so much of this work in another life. And I don't do a lot of past life stuff, but I think sometimes when we don't vibe with something, it's because our angels or spirits aren't talking to us through that. And that's fine. But when there's enough of a consciousness where we go, I have my own answers, I can do this. I think that if what we resist persists, right? So if we oppose it too much, it means we really need to look at it. And if you're not going to look at it here, you'll look at it up the street. It's like ignoring a tire that's going flat, Eventually you'll get it, So anyway, that's I know you're like going, okay, I'm going to ask questions. Sorry, I'm like, blah, blah.
No, I love the flow. Go with the flow. Intuitively, whatever it leads you. And I want to ask you, this course, the Find Your Purpose Divination, how is it? Sorry.
It's called Life Purpose Divination.
Life Purpose Divination. It's who would benefit from it? A person that is trying to change their job or to find
what
the reason they're here on earth, or
I'm glad you're asking that. I'm going to be honest with everybody. The people who will benefit from it are the people who are attracted to it, because it will do all those things. It will do, a new job can show up. One of the most miraculous stories, and this was when I was working with, because I also have like a Facebook page for that. So when you sign up, people comment who've been in the class. So you get a lot of comments, and I comment. And what happens is, and I think this is really profound, I think that you will find that your purpose will emerge, and what your purpose is your foundation. So let's start there. And I think, like I said, one of the best comments I got was from this gal, Kelly, and she was really upset. She was really disappointed. She was upset. And she said, I just don't get it. I found my purpose. So what's wrong? And she said, what's wrong with that? She said, well, my purpose is and was and still is to be a great mom, a great wife, a homemaker. That is my purpose. And I said, that sounds phenomenal. What's wrong with that? It's like brilliant. And she said, I do it so well. I said, great. She said, I really wanted my purpose to be to write a book. And I'm really disappointed that's not my purpose. And I said, let me tell you something. Your platform is your purpose. It's not what you do. It's what you come from.
So we need to nurture our purpose, and from there we can do very different and amazing things.
So from that purpose, hey, fun police, come over here. Come here, Owen. He's just that everybody's playing but him. He's going to stand on the outside. Here's the puppy, everybody. Here he comes. Here he comes.
It's self-inflicted.
No boundaries. No boundaries on the puppy. No idea. He's more interested in what's going on outside. But what happens, and going back to you and everybody listening, your purpose, the purpose of your purpose, right, is to give you a platform from which to work from. It's not your end game.
Oh, beautiful. That's great. Yeah.
So it is a breakthrough of, oh my gosh, my gift from my ancestors, right? My challenge from my ancestors, what I'm here to heal is the wounds of the grandparents.
Yeah.
And all of that, all of those gifts and challenges, you start to make sense of it when you get, oh my goodness, I get it. All of those gifts are your platform. So your purpose emerges. You know what? My purpose was to be a great mom. My purpose, to bring the chakra wisdom cards forward. That doesn't mean I won't do other things.
Exactly.
That doesn't mean that, and going back to wounding, let's bring that into, remember I said, I promised you I'd tell you the rest of the story. My mother, who wrote all my papers, now some people go, oh my gosh, child, I just want you to notice that the sun is now like, you know, it's very interesting because like it comes in like the angels come in, you know.
Yeah.
My mother, some people would say to you, you know, that was cruel and wounding, and you know, she wrote your papers, you didn't have a voice. However, think about it this way. Because of my unique wounding, because my mother wrote my papers growing up, because it suppressed that gift, I was in the unique position to receive I want to say the channel, if you will, or the dictation from the angels. So when I wrote down word for word the fables, it's because my wounding gave me the gift.
So you were being given word for word by higher powers what to write. It wasn't you sitting there thinking what fairy tales should I write?
I never had a thought. It was almost like it just went.
Wow.
And because of my skill, right? So I'll just show you, look at you could see this is all fable, right? And in the card deck, in the book, you just get this much, right? Because we changed it to the legend. But this whole section, the fables that are in the toolkit are an entire thing here. This is all the real fable.
Yes, and that's what was dictated to you.
Right, that was what, and by the way, when we went to British English, because my publisher was British, so we had to change it to British colloquialism, right? Even when we did that, there were certain things we changed, like they changed from apartments to mansions, but we put it back because I said, no, the full thing has to be in there. It has to be what the angels told me. And honoring that voice, honoring that every fable is so different, and that was the big complaint. Think about this, everybody. When publishers looked at it, because I was trying to sell it, people went, oh no, the fables are all too different. There's no cohesion. And I said, that's because the world is different.
Yeah.
There is, and you know what's funny? There are 2 gay cards in the deck. I didn't go, oh, I'm going to write a gay story. I didn't go, oh, I'm going to write a black story. I just wrote the story. And the story, when we look at the different people, there's different walks of life, different points of view, different ideas, different concepts. And the more we can come into that place of getting that we're all really on this path together. And I love that quote from Dr. King. Martin Luther King said, and forgive me, I'm going to ruin his quote, but I'll try to keep it as close as possible. We all arrived on different boats, but we're on the same ship now. And to me, that's what this is. This is the arrival of all the boats and putting together the idea that we're all on the ship. There's a reason that it was the first deck ever to get done in the Chinese language. You
have it translated in how many languages?
Well, what was interesting was the first one was Hungarian, and I cried. I have to let you all know, I cried because my grandfather was Hungarian.
You're completing their legacy. There you go.
And what's really interesting was and I went to Hungary, and I was so moved. And it was very interesting, everyone, and you'll get this, Lada. I was standing there, and I was with my translator and the publisher. They spoke English, but then other people. We'd gone to an event, one of my publisher's children's event at school, and we went to this event at night. It was great, and I turned to my translator and I said, do you know where the bathroom is? A toilet, you say in Europe. Do you know where the toilet is? And they were all talking, and I said, oh, that's okay. I won't use the downstairs then. I don't want to use the children's. I'll go upstairs to the adult one. And they all looked at me, and she looked at me. She said, did you understand what we just said? I said, yeah, I did. How did I know that?
In Hungarian?
They spoke in Hungarian, and I knew that what they said was this was the children's bathroom, but the adult bathroom was upstairs, but wow. I could use this one. And my response was, oh, that's okay then. I don't want to use the children's. I'll walk upstairs. And they all went, does she speak Hungarian?
Oh, wow.
And it was just this fascinating moment when I went, and I sat there through an evening of a Hungarian presentation, and I understood most of it. So what happens is when you step into your own language, and this deck is all about language. It's all about how we flip on. We're all on autopilot, all of us. We're like, and I say this in my new book, How to Read the Cards. We're all on this autopilot journey, and we're always in a trance. So like, you're in the trance of motherhood, right? Because this is an energy that's coming forward really strongly for you right now. It's like this is coming forward, and it's a beautiful one. And I just want to say I'm really sorry if I brought that forward and I wasn't supposed to.
No, that's great. It's time.
It's like everything's fine now because it's just going to be fine. So, but I wanted to just say like the different languages. Like here's this is the Chinese, and the deck itself is actually bigger than the English language.
Oh yeah, I can see that. Yeah.
It's much bigger, and I'll just show you the English language size. This is the size of the English language. Right?
Yeah.
But in Chinese they added a pouch, and the card deck, it opens this way. The book, and so it's really interesting. The other one is so what I love is how different people are interpreting it. So it's going to be in Russian next year. And I think it's really interesting, Spanish, Russian, and it's kind of has a life of its own, And I have to say to all of you and listening too, when things have that natural flow, there's a natural energy to it. If you really look at what we look at as our greatest wounding, like my mother dictating my papers and being, hard on me, and the challenge with that, what did that do for me? It forced me into a place where I wanted to really be kind to people and to support them on their journey and offer them the space that I never got, because I wanted that space to explore who I was, and I never did, because my mother had decided this is who I was going to be. And when I was able to understand that wounding that I had uniquely qualified me to do this work. So I want to say that if you all, and just as a little exercise right now even, just go ahead and write down what your greatest wounding is. If you're, just listening to this, go, what is my wounding? Where did I come here, and what am I still in pain about? Because we all have stuff, right? So if you look at a painful memory and it formed who you are, how did it today create who you've become and the gifts you have, right?
Oh, yeah, I can give an example with my life. My grandfather was an alcoholic, and it's coming from the grandparents. There you go. And I struggled for years with all kind of addictions, for drugs and anything, in my 20s in particular. And that was the reason I started studying astrology, to find an answer and, to find a why, because I didn't even remember why I was hurt as a child. No, I don't remember, but what's this compulsion to drink or to use drugs or whatever? And that's what was my gift of astrology. And it naturally resolved itself with time. And I guess I resolved my grandfather's problem because he managed to stop drinking. And my grandmother's issue was that she was so spiritual and religious. She would go from door to door knocking to people and trying to bring the message of God and higher world, and she would tell me, I wish there was an easier way I could reach a bigger audience. And I used to think, you're doing it in a very aggressive way. This is not the way. And I used to think, like, there must be a better way to bring the message of God and higher worlds to people. And this is what we're doing now. So I guess I'm continuing the legacy of both of my grandparents.
And look at that. Look at how, I mean, if we look at this, you know, I don't want to say we ever beat an addiction, because we don't. They show up in different ways. But I think what we do is, you know, if we can find out who we are and say, okay, for today, I'm not going to drink. For today, I'm not going to do drugs. Then we're healing that legacy.
Mm-hmm.
Finding out that, you see, when people drink and do drugs, it's because of their greatness that they don't know how to handle.
Thank you.
There really is a greatness in them. And we know that a lot of drunks are angry, and, you know, there's a lot of stuff that's suppressed. And I don't want to, you know, say that people aren't hurt by drunks. I don't want to say that, but I want to say that there's a real gift. Also, there are those of us who struggle with it. And I think the more we share about it, the more we're open about where we are, the more people can say, oh, I'm not crazy.
Mm-hmm.
You know? So look at that. Look at how your grandparents, you know.
They couldn't complete whatever mission it was in. When you started talking, I just got goosebumps when you said that it's connected to your legacy is connected to your grandparents. And I was like, okay, my grandfather struggled and always wanted to stop drinking. He couldn't. I managed to do it in this lifetime. My grandmother always wanted to spread the message. She couldn't. It was very limited, going door from door. And I continued that. So, wow. Okay, that makes so much sense.
And that's,
of course, you help people look through that.
Oh, yeah. That's exactly what life purpose divination does. See, because one of the things that you have to understand, and I'm going to be teaching the chakra wisdom cards coming up, but one of the things I want to say about that to everybody is that I'm saying that the prerequisite to learn the cards is I want you to have that foundation so I can speak to you in that language. So when I say to you, okay, dive under the wave, step into your neutral observer, use these techniques, people will go, oh my gosh, I get it. I get it. And it's really exciting when you see people start to go, wow, I got that. I just got it. Like, how did that happen? And what I want to say is that your brain wants to protect you.
Mm-hmm.
Your intuition is always trying to speak to you. So people say to me, how do I know the difference?
Yes, I was reading about belief and knowing. What is the difference? This is what you teach. How for people to understand what is their brain talking or their true heart. Like you say, it's the intuitive third chakra that speaks to you. Sorry.
Well, yeah, it's basically what we're talking about is two different things. There's belief and knowing,
mm-hmm.
and then there's brain and intuition. So belief and knowing is kind of like when people come to me or come to you even and they go, I want to change this belief. I have a negative belief. Well, beliefs in and of themselves, everybody, are negative. Think about it. A belief, you have to create a belief to stop or prevent or change something.
Mm-hmm.
And that was negative. So what you're doing is you're actually putting a negative on a negative
mm-hmm.
to try to create a positive. It's like building your home on a graveyard.
Oh, wow.
You have some scary stuff happen, right? So beliefs in and of themselves, like that's the thing about some affirmations will work because sometimes you're stepping into the knowing of it. And here's the difference. One day I was sitting at a bar, the old days. This was years ago. I was in my 20s, and he's now a famous actor, and a bunch of us were all hanging out in Hollywood, you know, and when I first moved to Hollywood, actually, yeah, I was in my early 30s, sorry. And we're all sitting around, and this one guy says to me, do you really believe this bleep that you do? And I said, no, I don't believe it at all. I know it.
That's the difference.
That's the difference. So a belief means I have to force myself and defend it to you. Knowing means I just know it. How can I? And you know what happens? There's no argument there. Well, how do you know? I just know.
So when a person goes struggling, trying to prove something, they're usually coming from a place of the belief rather than from a place of knowing. Because when you know, why should you convince someone that there is air? You know?
And that's where we look at, even when we look at, and I'm not going to get into it too much, but when we look at the energy of the presidential election, These were two beliefs coming at each other. Boom.
Oh, so much struggle. Yeah.
And until there's a knowing of what you stand for, right, it's always going to be a belief war.
Mm-hmm.
So when we look at knowing, the knowing is, and again, here's another one I can share with all of you. Here's the idea. I want y'all to imagine that you have a belief. Like, I want you to find a belief that, is like, I believe in, I'm trying to think of a good one. I was working with guilt today. I believe guilt is a wasted emotion. How about that? There's a belief, right? So most of us can go, yeah, it's a wasted emotion. Belief is wasted emotion. Guilt. Now I want you to step into now higher energy. And I want you to step into the knowing of how guilt operates in your life. And if you can get that, if you can get the difference between a belief, well, that's a waste of time, versus a knowing of what it is. Like, sometimes we do feel badly because we don't want to hurt people's feelings. Sometimes that's true. And when you know that you've done something that has been a contributor to an upset in someone else, we want to correct it. So that in and of itself isn't a bad thing. So it's, you know what I mean? So we start to get the differential between the two and where the energy works in our life. So I think that's a really, I don't know if I answered your question, but when we look at life purpose divination, one of the things that happens is you walk through, and it is a course that I do as a it's an online, you basically get recordings from me and you get a workbook and you work through it each week. It's a 7-week course. And the idea of it, and the reason I did it this way, and there's a Facebook page, so you're not alone.
So if people have questions, they can write to you on the
Facebook. They just, because once they join the course, they're in that group. They can join the group, and you'd be surprised, people who took it a year and a half ago still jump on. And the thing about that course that's so incredible is people say, I really feel like I wish I was doing it with someone. And I say to people, but you have to understand, you have to get these principles. It's like the dark night of the soul. When you walk through these lessons or these sessions, and because you'll hear me talk, and through 90% of it, I go, just breathe and keep going. Just breathe and keep going. It's okay. And if you just keep going, you'll get it. And when you get it on the other side of it, you're really ready to read cards. Because we have to be able to comprehend and walk through our own dark night of the soul before we can ever help or support, I want to say, other people. And the most dangerous thing you can do is give people advice. I really think that's dangerous as a reader, because you're holding too much power. Right? Because
I think there is karmic consequences as well.
I think that the biggest thing is, and when you talk about the karmic consequence, I think the biggest thing is, I don't want to be in the way of your result. Because then you'll never feel the responsibility. You'll never feel the good when you create something good. And you'll always feel like, did she make that happen? No, you did it yourself.
This course is not only for people who want to learn to develop their intuition and read cards. It's for anyone who wants to find what they're here for.
And I think the thing is that it's for people who want to go deeper and understand the connections in their life, so that they can then step into, write that book, get rid of all those things in the way. And the thing is, remember I told you about my student at the beginning, right? Who said, I'm not going to forgive my parents. So people can go into this course and go, oh, this isn't going to work. Or I don't know, but the bottom line is that if you show up for it, you will find a change. You will find what you're looking for. And I think what I'm going to invite everybody in this to do, follow your own intuition. If you go, oh, I don't want that at all, don't do it. It's not for you. If there's something there that makes you say, wait a minute, there's some, I have to share this with you because y'all will love it. It's just a quick one. This is my favorite one. Somebody once, my friend Mark, it's years ago, Jeff, he teaches acting in LA. And he came into my house one day. We're all, a bunch of us were hanging out, and he comes in. That means socializing for those of you in other countries. We're all socializing. And he walks in, and I said, "You look so different." He said, "Yeah, I just did this weekend. You know, it was one of those like tree hugging weekends, experiential thing." And I went, "I want to do it." He said, "I haven't even told you about it." I said, "I want to do it. I'm in. How do I sign up?" Like, wow, that was easy. You know, so I just went.
The intuition, it's something that you immediately feel in your body, viscerally.
If you felt stuck, if you feel like, I know there's one thing I'm missing. I know there's one thing. And if I knew what that one thing was, I could do such and so, then that's it. That's the one thing. Like, if you're called to that, it's right for you. If not, I'm not kidding, everybody. It's like, Lada has great offerings. You have great offerings. Do the work, to follow what she's doing. You know, it's not like I've got the answer or so-and-so has the answer. Go with the vibe, you know, and you totally are on this wavelength. You're on this wavelength and you get this. And there's
what if you feel initially you're like, oh yeah, I feel so drawn to this, I want to do this, and then you start thinking about it, and the more you convince yourself, maybe that's not for me. That's not your intuition, that's something else.
Oh, you just brought it up. I knew I was going to talk about knowing and excuse me, intuition and brain. All right, so here's how you know the difference. When you're confused and you are completely baffled and you're like, I don't know what to do, your brain is shutting down your intuition to keep you safe.
Yes.
The sole purpose of your brain is so that you won't feel pain, and that it protects you and says to you subconsciously, remember last time you did that?
Yeah.
You got in trouble.
Oh yeah.
So what happens with it, I love that this light is coming in, but I'm just going to move
I know.
it. But the thing I want to say, I'm so glad you brought this up. When you second guess, right? You know how we second guess ourselves? And you know how, come on everybody, you know you've done this. If you have a card deck, you go, oh look, a second card dropped. You have one card and you go, oh look, this one fell out too. What does it mean? Well, what it means is the second card is your brain trying to shut down the message. So the second card will be how you stop yourself. Always.
Oh, okay. So the first is, it's the God-given intuition, the first thought, the first card, the first inkling. That's how we recognize it.
And you know what I've learned is that you just sometimes it's better to finish what you started than and sometimes finishing means you're in 2 weeks and you go, I'm done.
Yeah.
I've had people say I'm good, not with my course, I mean with other things, you know. And there's some people who go, oh, this isn't what I want. I don't want this work. And it is the brain going, no, you're going to get hurt. You're going to discover things, and you will. It's not an easy journey. You know, it isn't an easy journey to find peace. You know, there is a thing of walking through, you know, then the enlightenment card in the chakra wisdom, it's a third chakra card. And he says, that's the enlightenment card. And there is the mighty topaz, and he's standing, he's the one in the robe. And the little boy is saying, how do we find enlightenment? And he says, it's through your fears.
Wow.
So when you look at that, that's the journey. And by the way, third chakra, your brain, thinking, planning. And if what you're planning is not, if your heart isn't into it, you will get stopped by the fourth chakra. You will get stopped in your heart. I can't tell how many people will go, yeah, I want to start this business and I'm going to make $1 million. You know, I'm going to do all this. And I'm like, do you really want to do it? Oh, yeah. Oh, it's what I want to do. I'm going to make all this money and then I'm going to do this.
Oh.
You're investing that much time, you might as well do what you want.
Directly go to.
Because what happens is, by the time they get, because their thinking is, it's going to make me money, it's going to do this, and you're overriding your own feelings. You're going, no, I have to do this first, and once I do this and make money, it doesn't work like that.
Yeah.
It's so challenging when you do it that way, because what's going to happen is your heart will open up eventually and go, I don't really want this.
Yeah, when your passion is not into it, you're not gonna lead it to the end, or
no. And even when it is, you will doubt it. You will go, am I doing the right thing? I mean, I can't tell you how many times I drop to my knees and pray and go, this is insane. What am I doing? I just spent my life savings.
Wow.
Am I out of my mind? And then, of course, I met Jeff Lewis from Flipping Out, and things started to change. And, and I helped him with that show, and meaning I was a psychic during the time that it was being developed, and I was on the first season, and things started to happen, And I will say this, that, when I look at all of that, when I look at the path I've been on, it was like, I can't tell you how many times I wanted to quit, Letta. And I want to say this to everybody. If you don't have a moment that calls you into, I can't do this. If you don't have that moment, then you're not human. And you have to find out what you're made of. There's a Mark Allen quote that I love. It's like, circumstances don't make a man, they reveal him.
Yes.
And that's it. It shows you who you are in every given moment. And that's what the chakra wisdom cards are. And I really think what's amazing for me as being gifted with this and getting to give this gift has been watching people just become who they are, who they were meant to be, like at any age, and seeing the success that they step into effortlessly. Because let me tell you something. If you skip, whatever you skip is going to stop you.
Mm-hmm.
I guarantee the parts we skip, you go, oh, I don't want to do that part. Well, guess what? And I've had that happen. We all have. So anyway, coming back to the idea of life purpose divination, what it is, in my opinion, this is my own opinion, obviously. In my opinion, it is the strongest course I teach. And I guide you through it. You'll have, like, there's downloads, and there's, like I said, the Facebook page, and there's I call it the fun book. It's not a workbook, it's a fun book, because there's intuitive exercises each time, and you start to know you start to see how much you know. And what it does is these exercises go around your brain. Mm-hmm. So your brain is off, like going, I got to sweep the front porch, and your intuition is going, good moment. Now, go get that pen and paper and let's start the book, or whatever it is. Like, let's plan out what we really want, And I think what happens is the more you start to work with your intuition, the more the brain goes, oh, I trust that.
Yes.
And it's not something you do, it's something you become. I think that's the beauty of that woman who recognized that she didn't have to forgive her parents. Her parents weren't even in the equation. Somebody somewhere loved her. For you, your parents and your baby, your husband or boyfriend's, parents are the people that are going to influence this child.
Wow.
So that, and knowing that, think about this as being a grandparent now. Think of the grandparents now who can say, wait a minute, if I'm influencing my grandchild in that way, how much do I need to tell them about what I've done and my hopes and my dreams? Mm-hmm. I hope, if people listening, I hope if you're a grandmother or grandfather, you tell your grandchildren what's going on. Be with them. Because you give them such richness you don't even know.
But it's something very interesting that you said, that it comes out of purpose and from the grandparents, because in astrology, actually grandparents are ruled by the first house and the seventh house, which is the axis of self and your life purpose. They're derived houses because they're the parents of your parents. So I'm starting to think, my God, this has so much truth to what you're teaching, because the axis of the self is, and your partners and your relationships in life is the same axis of your grandparents that rules your grandparents.
And so we look at that rising sign, right? We look at
the rising is your grandparents as well. Because from the 10th, and the 10th is one of your parents, so it's kind of.
And that's the thing about having that Virgo rising for me. It's a nightmare because I end up like I've had to work so much with the idea of, oh, I'm single again, or oh, and I always fall into relationships. I don't, but I have to make an intention to be in them, and I'm like, I don't really want one. But then I'm like, okay, I guess I have to do something.
You're Virgo rising.
Exactly. Because so, we look at that Pisces on the 7th house and we know like, woo, I get lost in that universe, right? So, and I want to say too that I think they all come together. When we look at the cycles, when we look at, astrology as being the 12 months, 12 disciples, the signs, all of that is a cycle. And I think that we are ready for certain things. And I believe it has a lot to do with the Jupiter returns too.
Every 12 years.
Yeah.
Again, yeah. Just
so
that.
I look at Jupiter as in some ways the Christ planet, because I look at it as that coming back to making that return to that spot in time.
Yes.
And I can't tell you how many times when I see a Jupiter return on somebody's chart, I go, something's coming.
Wow, there you go. I have my Jupiter return. 12 years ago, I discovered astrology on my previous Jupiter return. Some of the biggest clarity moments come to a person, and Jupiter rules actually our what gives us meaning and purpose in life. So this is when during Jupiter returns we discover those, or it's given to us, or we discover it.
And also remember, Jupiter is also, that 9th house stuff. It's also foreigners. So you do very well in a foreign country, which makes a lot of sense, right? Because, here you are in America.
Yeah, I relocated, from Europe to America during Jupiter return. It's true. And it's about wisdom. This is when God speaks to you. During Jupiter returns, your intuition increases and leads you to the right paths. And I guess to courses like yours as well, to teachers like yours, and like you, sorry. During Jupiter returns, I'm always studying, learning, connecting to amazing teachers like you. So I guess, so Tori, if people want to get your course, I'm putting links as well under this video, and I'm putting links also to your website so people can go straight directly there.
Okay. Sure.
And you sell your deck cards there as well.
Actually, the cards are sold on Amazon, but you can go to my website. If you go to my website, you'll see where in the world the link is for you. So I have a link there for the French version, for the, So if you go to my website, it's probably the best place to go because you can get the link to where in the world your language is. So that's a good point. And one other thing I want to say that's important, Lada, and everybody listening, if you are interested in life purpose divination, use the link here on Lada's page because she will get, she gets a little bit of money for all the hard work she does. And I'm going to say this to all of you. This is a labor of love that she's doing. This information that you're getting from her and all of this is because there's a higher calling, and it's very thankless. She doesn't get a lot from this, like meaning, you give and give and give. And there's so much of a gift you're giving. And I want to acknowledge that you give so many people. And I want to say to everybody that, when you see a link on someone's page and you get a chance to go through that link, please use their link because it rewards them for the work they do. So I want you to look at like those links. Like if there's a link to something, on someone's page, like Lada's page, she's going to get something from that. And it's because of all the work she's done to this point. To be of service.
So much, sorry.
Because people don't realize it. They think, oh, what, the sound was bad or this was bad. There's so much we give when we give stuff. And there's just so much time that goes into it. And I want you all to know the more you appreciate the people that are giving to you, the more you will be in that position sooner.
Wow. Well, remember I told you that I drew a card before our conversation? And I was like, what is this going to be about? And this card of gratitude came in, and this pregnant woman as well.
The thing is that
And you're talking about gratitude now, absolutely.
And your child's being born in your Jupiter return, which is really interesting.
He's a gift. Opening
gift. I want to say this because this is a key too for you. Not only is he a gift, he's going to expand your world, which we know, but also he's lucky. He's going to always be lucky. You'll always have a tinge of luck together, and there'll always be that luck. And I want to say, you know, the one thing about Jupiter and Sagittarius that's very interesting, and both the planet and the sign have this, by the way.
Yeah.
You are promised somewhere in your life you will be lucky, like really lucky. Luck is coming to you. So this child coming in your Jupiter return is going to be a full circle of healing.
Oh, but this is what's happening. This is what's been happening. Like things I've been struggling all my life with, they disappeared. They were dissolved magically, and I'm like, God, thank you so much.
You know, and I really believe that. I really think that our work is about guiding you and everybody listening, not you, Lada, but everybody listening, to just remember that we're all just vessels of this. We're all just like, you know, I think sometimes life is a hysterical activity on the way to the grave. I mean, I think we just get to like have this like fun adventure. Like, oh gosh, you know, and I mean, you know, the lack of dignity and at the end of our lives sometimes, you know, but I think that when we look at this, you know, I used to want to enter a room and make a grandstand. Now I just want to leave a room with dignity. And I think that's a good enough goal for me. Oh, look who just showed up on the screen.
Hey.
He's like, do you want to come over here? He's such a pretty dog. I have 3 whippets, everybody, and he's my little love bunny.
Wow.
So thank you. I know that, but I want to say to everybody, you know, just remember the answers are in you, and you, whatever you're attracted to, whatever you see. Look at me coming into the light here. Whatever you're attracted to is right for you. Follow your wisdom, follow your knowing. Know that, you know, like you can go with the flow of anything, you know.
And guys, if you are blocked with that, if you are not sure whether to trust to make a difference between your intuition and your brain, and I think Tori's class is what is going to take you there.
Well, and that's the purpose of it. The purpose of it is to really help you awaken your intuition and live intuitively. And when you get that gift, you can read cards. Cards are just you know, an astrology.
It's just a side effect. It's just
all of that like stuff. Going back to the woman who said, but my purpose is to be a wife and mom. I go, phenomenal. I mean, you know, and that's her platform. So think today about, what is my excellence? What is my excellence? Just, I want to leave you with that thought too. So.
Thank you so much, Tori. You're a wonderful spirit. The Sagittarian energy just flows through you.
And I just can't wait to meet your baby.
Oh, me too. This Jupiter baby, to see you.
I'm just sending your baby lots of light and love, and I'm asking the spirit world to just, all of the angels and guides, to just make this such a blissful experience. And I'm also asking that all of you watching and listening later and in that moment are sending her and this child she's bringing into the world light and love. And so it is.
Wow, I'm feeling it. It's tingling. Wow, thank you so much, Tori. That's amazing. I got the truth bumps, as you call them.
You're making me cry. I get all emotional. You know, like, oh, you know, so, but thank you. And I'm just honored I got to spend this time with you.
I am as well. Thank you for taking the time, and have a wonderful, it's Sundays.
Right now it's Sunday, and it's just the most beautiful day here in Asheville, North Carolina, which is where I live now.
The first sunny day in Seattle since October.
I just can't tell you how much I love it. I just love seeing the seasons again.
Well, thank you so much, Tori. I will let you take the rest of the day and rest a bit. And thank you everyone for joining us and sharing with this amazing knowledge and energy. It's energy that's coming from Tori. And I will see you soon again. Bye-bye.